A soulmate is simply someone with whom you have a past life connection. So it could be anyone from your parents, your siblings, your children. It could be a relative. It could be a colleague, a friend, a neighbor, a classmate, a business associate. We travel together as a soul family, as a pod of souls. So we've been together with these same souls that are in your life now. You've been together with them from the beginning of time. The only difference is that lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we change our gender and we change our role. So your mother in this life could have been your husband in a previous life. But the essence of the souls, and you know this, stays the same. It's just...
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Wetzel, and thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to have a conversation with Joanne DiMaggio. She's an author, and she is a writer, and she's written a number of books and medical. Oh my God, I can't stop. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Wetzel, and thank you for joining us today. I am joined with Joanne DiMaggio, who is a professional writer and an author of a number of books and magazines. And today we're going to talk about her latest book, which is Soulmates and Soul Twins and travel. I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right. I'm going to say it again. Soulmates, Soul Twins, and Traveling Companions on the Road to Enlightenment, which I am thrilled to have this conversation. So, Joanne, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. So your resume is this long.
Because I'm this old.
Well, you have a lot of experience behind you, and you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. So I really don't want to even go into your resume because I don't think that I'll do it justice. So what I would like for you to do is talk about it yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and how this book came about.
Okay, well, I've been studying reincarnation specifically since 1987. That's the year that Shirley MacLaine's book, Out on a Limb, became a miniseries, was aired on ABC for 2 nights. And I had been interested in the topic before then. When I was a teenager, I was reading about Edgar Cayce and some other metaphysical authors at the time. So I was already interested in it, but that really piqued my interest to the point where I decided to devote my studies to it. Joined the Edgar Cayce's A.R.E, Association for Research and Enlightenment. That same year, I formed my own past life research organization, and I started bringing in speakers who were on the cutting edge of that topic. And then I started doing regressions myself in the early 1990s. And then out of that, I decided to get my master's in transpersonal studies through Atlantic University, which is part of A.R.E. And then I started writing books. My first book was on Soulwriting, which is a written form of meditation, which I also teach. And then I started doing case studies with my clients on various aspects of reincarnation studies. So I did one on physical karma. I did one on the pre-life planning session. And then I also wrote a few other books. I did a book about the Beatles and spirituality. And I did a book about Edgar Cayce and one of the readings that he did on a baby boy that he said had been Thomas Jefferson in a past life. I was fascinated by that. And so on it went. Now, about 2 years ago, a family member came to me and said that they were going through a divorce. And he said it was because his wife started reading up about soulmates and decided he wasn't it. So she was leaving him. And so, of course, he was very devastated by this. And I thought, if she had come to me, she knew what I did, what my studies were. I would have told her that a soulmate is not what she thought it was. And so that gave me the idea that, and plus the 38 years of doing this sort of work with people, the issue of soulmates comes up every single regression that I do. So I thought, I really want to set the record straight. I want to help to educate people about the true meaning of a soulmate And hopefully, because there are a lot of terms, this that are tossed around, and people don't really understand the true meaning of them. And so this was one that I thought I could do something about. So I did a case studies with people who shared their experiences with their soulmates, or as I like to sometimes call them, their cellmates, and then the book came out of that.
So can you guys give us kind of like a little overview of what the book is about?
Sure. Well, the first part of the book, I look at what learned authors and teachers have written about soulmates. So I have quotes in there from Edgar Cayce and from Brian Weiss, and I just went through my entire library and looked, who was saying what about soulmates, what was their experience and understanding of what that was. So I set the groundwork in the first chapter or so about what is a soulmate, and then the second one was what is a twin soul, because they are different. So I went into explanation and did the same thing, basically pulling. This is what I like to do when I write books. I love to do research. It's like my favorite thing to do. So I look at what other people have written about it, what their case studies have shown, and then I meld it together and share that with people, plus my own perspective on it. And then the last part of the book, the last 10 chapters, are 10 different case studies of people who had issues with a soulmate in this life. Now, it could have been a romantic partner, but it also was, I had one who had a soulmate relationship with a mother. I had another one who had a soulmate relationship with a sibling, with his sister. So I wanted to show the various aspects of it and what they learned from first of all, from the past life regression, to find out, when did this relationship begin? Were there any issues, unfinished business from that life that they brought into this life to work on? And then how are they going to resolve these issues so they can move forward with or without that relationship in their life?
Yeah, and I think this is so fascinating because I channel the Akashic records and people ask me questions, and so my understanding of soulmates is very different. It comes from the spiritual aspect of where the records are and where they come from, compared to the way that we interpret from our mind or the stories we've been told on the earthly plane of what a soulmate is. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because so many people associate soulmates with the romanticized version of what they feel like your soulmate is or what they're supposed to be. So how do you define a soulmate?
Well, a soulmate is simply someone with whom you have a past life connection. So it could be anyone from your parents, your siblings, your children. It could be a relative. It could be a colleague, a friend, a neighbor, a classmate, a business associate. We travel together as a soul family, as a pod of souls. So we've been together with these same souls that are in your life now. You've been together with them from the beginning of time. The only difference is that lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we change our gender and we change our role. So your mother in this life could have been your husband in a previous life. But the essence of the souls, and this stays the same. It's just that we change bodies like we change vehicles. And so these people know you on an intimate level. They know what presses your buttons. They know why you're here. They know what your unfinished business is. And they agree in that pre-life planning session, before you come into this body, you decide, hey, I'm going to work on issues from this particular past life. And it could have been a life that happened 1,000 years ago. And you just put those issues on the back burner and you decided, I'm not going to work on those until this upcoming life. And then you let your members of your soul family know while you're still in the afterlife, hey, I'm going to come to Earth and I'm going to join this family and I'm going to come in with X, Y, and Z issues. And then they'll say, well, I'm going to help you. And they'll come in with you. But it may not be the kind of help you think it's going to be. So the end goal is to always enable you to resolve whatever issue you brought in with you. So how they do it It could be you perceive of it as being painful, maybe in this life. Or you could perceive of it as being very helpful, very encouraging and supportive. But every soul that comes in with you is your soulmate, and they each have a role to play in your life with the goal of resolving past karma.
So how are soulmates created?
Well, I don't know how initially, because we were all created at the same time as far as souls are concerned. So I kind of balk at the suggestion that there are old souls versus young souls or new souls, because according to Edgar Cayce, we were all created at the same time, and the difference between us is how often we come to Earth. Mm-hmm. So you have a soul that says, is very adventuresome, and it's going to come every, say, 50 to 200 years. They'll come back, come back, come back. They acquire a lot of wisdom because they have come into the earth plane and they have learned the lessons that you can only learn here on the earth. Whereas you have another soul who doesn't come in that often and so doesn't appear to have that kind of wisdom. But we were all created at the same time. And this whole idea of a missing half, like that's what a lot of people, that's what draws people to the whole soulmate idea, is they feel like they're not whole, that there's some missing part of them that's out there somewhere and they want to find that missing whole. And that goes back thousands and thousands of years. I mean, there's stories about how Zeus split a soul in half. And I think ever since then, we've been thinking that there's another half of us out there somewhere, when in reality, we are whole and complete unto ourselves, and really do not require another soul to make us whole and complete. We already are.
Yeah. So going back to how soulmates are created, do you think that, like as we go, let's go back to the beginning of time, and we're all these little souls that are just like, okay, I need my next adventure. Who's going to join me? Like, do we pick up soulmates along the expansion of the soul's journey? Or do we come in like a soul family from the very beginning and we only associate with the soulmates that were created at the beginning of time?
No, we come in and out. We've got some that are at the core, that are consistently with us, and then you've got some on the periphery who come in and out for whatever reason. So that there's some fluidity in all of that, but but it's basically the same group of souls. Like for instance, I found out that my mother had not been with me before. My father had been. But they sort of came as a package deal. So because I wanted my father as my father for reasons that my soul needed for growth, my mother being with him became part of my soul group as well. And someone did a reading for me once and said that my mother wanted to come in because she wanted to see what it would be like to be my mother. I think that was pretty funny, but she didn't know what she was getting into. But because we pick our parents, we choose the souls that we want as our mother and our father. Mm-hmm. The other souls are more of a voluntary kind of thing. They decide yes or no. I'm not coming in this. That's why we're not with the same souls every lifetime. The group is really too big. You wouldn't be able to, interact with all of them all at once. And then they come in and out too. So they could come in, do whatever it is they need to do, and then go back out again. That's why some people, you'll say you don't understand what happened to this friendship. We were really close. And then I don't know what happened and they were gone. Well, the question is, what did you learn from it? Because if you learned something, if they came in with a specific lesson and that lesson was taught, then there was no reason to continue to stay in that lifetime.
Yeah. So you're talking about, you mentioned soul families. So what is your definition of a soul family?
Soul family is simply the group of souls that you are traveling with. They're not they're not gender related. They're not stationary in a role. They're just a pod, like a group of souls. And like I said, we change our roles and we change our gender every lifetime. So when I do a regression with someone, one of the questions I ask them is, are there any people, any souls from that past life we just visited who are in your life now? Mm-hmm. Making the stipulation that they won't look the same, and they may not, so they may have been female before and now they're male, but the essence stays the same and you can feel them out. People that are intuitive, a lot of times, they relate to others by the essence of them and how they feel around them rather than an actual visual memory of them.
Yeah. I have a lot of people talk about, I just had that feeling there was some kind of a connection. Mm-hmm. And when they feel that, I call it like a soul recognition. I don't know if that's a good way to say it. But also a common belief is that when we have these feelings, we think that person should be permanent in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is that even though you may have that soul recognition, it doesn't mean that they're supposed to be permanent. They may just come in, spend a time, teach us our lessons, and then move on.
Exactly. If the lesson that you want to learn is on abandonment, let's say that you abandoned somebody in a prior lifetime and you decided, I need to even this out. And so the only way that I'm going to be able to do that is if I experience what it feels like to be abandoned. So then you'll have maybe somebody in your soul family will say, okay, I'll come in with you. And at some point in your life, I'm going to abandon you. Now that's on the soul agreement level, right? Yeah. You don't remember that, obviously, when you're in human form. And so here they are in your life, and at some point they're gone. And you're like, what the heck just happened? Mm-hmm. And this is where the awareness comes in. People that really know why they're here and what they're working on have that advantage because they can say, oh, this is a lesson. So it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it that the greatest growth happens. So that's the purpose that we share with each other when we make the agreement to come into life with each other.
Yeah, good. So, and I'm going to come back. I've got a list of questions about soulmates. So we're going to come back and revisit that topic. But in the meantime, you mentioned Cellmates just a few minutes. C-E-L-L. So,
C-E-L-L.
What is your definition of a cellmate?
A cellmate is a soulmate. They come like cloaked as a soulmate, but they tend to keep you emotionally imprisoned. Mm. So they have an agenda, and it's a challenging agenda. Okay, so it's like they may keep their finger down on you to make sure you don't advance. They may sabotage you. They may use you. They may bankrupt you. There's a whole list of things. That's why actually when I did my research, a lot of the relationships that were male-female ended up being soulmates who were actually cellmates. And I know what I speak of because I had one of those in my life too. So they don't, on a soul level, they have your best interest at heart, believe me. So even though they're presenting difficult lessons for you in this life and you're looking at them like, boy, you really hurt me, you really wounded me, you did this to me or that to me. Again, what I had said earlier, the whole purpose of it is for you to look at it as a lesson. What did you get out of this harsh, you may perceive it as a harsh lesson. And so that's what they do. So they just come in and they sort of create chaos to challenge us to address the karma that we've brought in.
So how did you term the coin cellmate?
Actually, I had read it many, 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 many years ago. Somebody wrote a magazine article and talked about cellmates, and so I thought it was a cute little play on words. Cell instead of soul. But the whole idea of the role that they play in keeping the whole idea of emotionally imprisoned fell into line with the whole idea of cell, or being behind bars, or being confined, and not being able to be free to be who you really truly are. So yeah, I don't claim original coming up with that term. It's been around. As a matter of fact, I was going to name my book Cellmates or Soulmates. No, Soulmates or Cellmates, but others had already done that. So I thought, no, I'm going to focus on I'm going to talk about Cellmates because it's an important aspect of this, but I wanted to talk also about twin souls.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that people understood that when we were talking about cell, CELL, that are we talking about like a prison cell, or are we talking about the cellular structure? So that's what
No,
I was
yeah,
getting at.
right,
We're talking about
right,
prison cell. Okay,
right.
perfect. Okay, so what is your definition of a twin soul or a twin flame?
A twin soul or a twin flame, we only have one of those. So we have many, 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 many soulmates, but you only have one twin soul. And the easiest way to recognize one is that they come in with the same purpose that you have. Their mission is the same as your mission is. Um, it may not be necessary to be incarnate at the same time. They could be on the other side helping you. They could be on the other side of the world helping you. You may not even meet them in any given lifetime. But an example of a twin soul relationship, I don't know how many of your listeners know much about Edgar Cayce, but his secretary, Gladys Davis, was his twin soul. Because when Mr. Cayce died in 1945, she came in and her whole purpose was to save the readings that he did. He did 14,000 readings over his lifetime. So she was there to safeguard the readings and to keep the A.R.E. Going. So therefore, they shared the same identical mission. So it's like double timing it, that you're both working on the same thing at the same time. Twin souls can both be the same gender. They don't have to be a male-female dynamic. It's a lot more rare than people think it is. But there is a difference between a twin soul and a soulmate in terms of why they're with you.
Mm-hmm. So how's a twin soul created?
Same way as a soulmate.
Okay. So when people talk about, again, what, because people have this idea, again, we read it, Google it, and it gives you a definition of what a twin flame is. And so people want to be associated with their twin flame because, again, they associate it with a romantic relationship. So how do you interpret what the common person thinks of what a twin flame is, and then what is an actual twin flame? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that they have that. I think once again, it's that romanticized ideal about that other half of me. I'm missing a part of me, and that my twin is out there somewhere, and I need to find him. Otherwise, I can never feel like I'm whole. So I think that people associate with it. I think they throw the terms around without really knowing what they mean. And you know what? You could blame the media for that. I mean, when I was researching my book, I was watching television and there was a reference to we're soulmates in a paper towel commercial. There was an article in A.R.E. magazine about finding my soulmate. You hear it all the time, and then some people get very particular, and they'll think that the twin soul or the twin flame is like level up. It's like the soulmate is at this level, but if I get the twin flame, that would be the really ultimate connection for me. So I think it really is just throwing words around that and not really knowing, what they mean, what they truly mean. And then the media, and because, sometimes when you use a term over and over again in common practice, that becomes the definition of it rather than the true definition of it. But most people aren't going to be like me and do all this research into the difference between them. It just fascinates me about when we put labels on ourselves and on others, and then expect them to live up to the definition that we've created ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I have a joke, a running joke with the girl that helps me with my job, and we always joke about people don't read, and I may be guilty of that. It's easier just to hear the words and not actually read and really read all of the fine print that goes along with something to get the
Yeah,
full.
I think that's for me a past life thing. I think I've been a truth seeker for many centuries, so I've been working with words a long, long time, and so I get really kind of caught up in stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so why do you believe that certain relationships are misunderstood in terms of their spiritual significance?
Say that again.
Okay, so why do you believe that certain relationships are misunderstood in the terms of their spiritual significance? Okay, so meaning that, again, I get in a relationship with somebody and it's either perfect or else it's a nightmare.
Hmm.
And we don't really understand the purpose of that relationship on the spiritual level.
Right, right. Well, in order to understand that, you have to have that open mindedness and that awareness of how the universe operates, because most people in mainstream thinking or in mainstream society that never give this a second thought, in terms of they become very much victimized by a relationship, and it's like something's being done to me by them. So they're not good. I'm good. They're hurting me. I haven't done anything wrong, and not looking at the higher purpose. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody. I mean, it's like it's very difficult when you're in the middle of being of a relationship that's hurtful to you to step back and look at it objectively. How many people could do that and go, well, what am I learning from this? Yeah, this was pretty painful. This was a big lesson for me. What did I learn? Because once you do that, once you learn that lesson, you have resolved that karma.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to deal with it anymore. That's the beautiful part about it. It's not like you're in this endless loop. You are if you don't deal with it, if you don't ask those tough questions of yourself and not blame. One of the books I wrote is called I Did It to Myself Again, which is all about how we plan out the life that we have now. This was all our doing. It wasn't thrust on us, forced on us. It wasn't haphazard. It wasn't random. Nothing is random, according to Edgar Cayce. And so you have to take responsibility for what's happening, and look at it from that objective perspective. And then it's like the light bulb goes off, because that's what happens in regressions. These aha moments happen because suddenly they see things from a whole different perspective and they go, now I get it. Now I understand. And then they feel like this heavy burden's been lifted from them, which is just so beautiful to see. That's why it's such a healing modality. And so, yeah, so it's a lot of it is self-reflection.
Yeah. Well, it is hard. Well, first of all, we're not as humans in the way that we've been conditioned to live, and the way that parents taught their children, and so forth. We When we're in the middle of the storm, we haven't ever been taught. Nope. Pull yourself out, get the bird's eye view, really look at what's going on and recognize how this is assisting you in your growth pattern, from that
Right.
spiritual perspective. And so we don't do it typically because we're taught to be in the storm. As humans, we have a tendency to be attracted to chaos and
Yeah.
all of the craziness. And I
Right.
don't know that there wasn't anybody in my life that ever said, nah, you need to step away from that and look at it from a different perspective. you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, Yeah. And, and it's all your friends and your family are like, well, what did they do to you today? What's happening? How, and all of the gossip and all of this good guy and bad guy kind of thing, and not really looking at that whole big picture. So, so hopefully we can change that with humans being open to new ways of thinking and seeing their lives. So can you share some insights into the differences between a supportive and a challenging soul connection?
Well, a supportive I do have people who come to me that have do past life regressions, and they go to a lifetime in which everything was just almost perfect. They were happy, they were in love, they had a beautiful family, they never had any illness or any trauma going on. It was just a beautiful existence. They were pursuing whatever interests they wanted to. Then they were surrounded by people who gave them that room to do that. Then I have other people who will have a regression in which everything that could possibly go wrong in that lifetime went wrong for them. They perceive of it that way. They were betrayed by a friend, or they were in a loveless marriage, or they were isolated and sent away, or had abusive parents or something like that. So you have, and that could be that could be the same person in two different lifetimes, because there's some lifetimes that we come and just have a little bit of a respite on this beautiful planet of Earth. Like if you have a really difficult life here, and then you're going to go into another difficult life right in the middle, I'm going to take a break. I just want to enjoy being in a physical body, being a spiritual being in a physical body, and all that this planet has to offer. So you might get this lifetime in between, and then you go back into the more challenging one, the one that may have some trauma involved with it. And you learn whatever lessons you're to learn from that one, and then you go on to the next one and the next one and the next one, like that, until you have finished. I like to think of Earth as a school, and I like to think of us as every lifetime is your curriculum, and you have certain lessons you signed up to take in that particular lifetime. If you pass the lessons, you don't have to take them again. But if you don't pass, or if you cut them short prematurely by leaving prematurely, you'll have to repeat them again. So it's just a learning. And you have some teachers that are very supportive, who inspire you, who encourage you along the way. The important thing is, I think, that if you have this level of soul awareness, that you're never alone. And so even in the most challenging lifetime, the most chaotic lifetime, you have some help from the other side that's always available to you. They're your cheerleaders in the sky. And if you learn to tap into that and learn how to communicate with that, it really eases the journey for you, no matter what you're facing.
Yeah. So how can relationships with soulmates, cellmates, or twin souls influence the individual's path to enlightenment?
Well, it just depends on the relationship issues that they have. What's kind of going on. Like I mentioned, I had one case study of a man who has had a soulmate relationship with a sibling, and they've been together, he said, from the beginning of time. He went way back in knowing that. And the common theme in every lifetime for them was competition. Mm-hmm. She was always competing with him. And so I asked him, how are you going to stop this cycle that you're in? Because it just repeats and repeats and repeats. And he said, well, the only way to do that would be if she were to give that up. Or it has something to do with the parents as well. But there's always a solution, if you think about it. So it doesn't really matter what kind of a relationship you're in, whether it's the soulmate/cellmate relationship or the twin soul relationship. The bottom line is, why are you together? Why did they come in with you? What role are they playing? What are you learning from them, that particular soul, that you couldn't have learned from anybody else? And then just integrate that into who you are today, and then you'll resolve it and be free of it. It's this unfinished business that we bring in with us from lifetime after lifetime, that these souls come in with us to help us finish up.
So I don't want to jump the gun. I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to follow it up with some karma, and how all of this is related to karmic energy. So can you elaborate on the role that past lives experience play in understanding our current relationships?
Well, they are a pattern. There's a behavior pattern that repeats itself from one lifetime to the other. And you can very clearly see that when you do a regression. Because when I do a regression with somebody, the first part of it is all about their identity, who they are, how old they are, female, male, what do they look like, all that stuff. We find out their name, we find out where they are on the continent, we find out what year, about the time period that they're in. The second part of it is looking at the significant events in that lifetime. What is it that happened then? Either something that they did to somebody or somebody did to them, or an illness or a trauma, or maybe it also could be something positive, like a skill, talent, or ability that you acquired, and that's your positive karmic attributes that you brought in with you. And you can pull on those at any time. That's very typical of healers. They've acquired the healing skill from other lifetimes, and they've brought that in with them. So we look at that. But then the last couple of questions are very telling, because will ask them, what were your last thoughts as your soul left your body? Because that often sets up the next lifetime. An example of that is I had a woman who had head-to-toe psoriasis. She wanted to know the source of the psoriasis. And it came out that she had been a call girl in the Old West. And I asked, what are your last thoughts? And she said, I don't want to be touched anymore. That thought, I don't want to be touched anymore, was recorded. And she manifested a lifetime in this life in which she has a skin disease in which nobody wants to touch her. So we look at the parallels and the correlation between that. I also ask them, what do you have in common with your past life personality, that person that we just visited in this past life? How are you like them? And everybody has something that they can identify with, that's the same as before. They could see, oh, there's a parallel here. There's a behavior pattern that's repeating itself. And then I do ask them, are there any people from that life in your life now? And we identify them and what role they're playing. And then finally I ask them, why do you think Spirit wanted you to see this particular past life? This is where the lesson is. And every one of them can very easily articulate at that point, at the end of the regression, they can articulate that. So I think that the regression is a guidepost for people that normally they wouldn't ask those questions of themselves. How would they go? How would they know to go within? Right. To ask those questions. And if they ask them of somebody else to tell them that, they're not going to learn as well as if they go in there and get them themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious. The reason why I'm asking this question is basically because of the information that I get whenever I do sessions. And, what my understanding is, we're in this time of elevating our consciousness. And in order to elevate our consciousness, it's related to a lot of past energy, past karmic patterns that are, I don't know if I should say heavy 3D, a lot of abusive control type energy. And so in this particular lifetime, we may be repeating that pattern in order to break it, so that we can clear that energy in order to elevate our consciousness. Is that what you understand?
Yeah, very much so. We're very much in alignment with our thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about breaking these karmic patterns, how I mean, obviously going back into our past lives and recognizing that pattern, and then being able to associate it with this lifetime. But how do you help people resolve these patterns, or the energetic patterns from the traumatic situations or whatever it is that we've carried into this lifetime?
Well, we really talk about it at the end of the session. I just, I'll ask them, and then also I let them know that it doesn't end there. They continue to get information from bleed through, because they've opened that door and spirit knows they want to know more, and they'll start sending them memory flashes beyond our session. But we really do talk about it. The beautiful part about past life work is that you usually only need one session. It's not like traditional psychotherapy in which you go week after week after week after week. Past life regression lets you get to the core, like peeling an onion. You go right directly to the core, so you can examine the root cause of what's happening. And that's where the healing takes place, because many times when people see, oh, now I understand where this is coming from, it releases it. And it many times it heals. When I did my physical karma case studies for my book, Karmic Can Be a Real Pain, I looked at people, had people come to me with all sorts of common maladies. They had chronic conditions, arthritis, ankle, foot, joint problems, diabetes, obesity. Some of them had mental or emotional issues. When they saw the origin of it and they knew where it came from, just having that understanding released the energy from it. Because I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was pretty high. It was 35-40% of the people in my study had a spontaneous healing. In other words, when they saw the root cause of it and saw where it came from, it dissipated it. And others, about an equal amount, had it changed their perspective on it, because they understood where it came from, and that was a healing for them. So that's why I think past life work is such a healing modality, and you don't even have to really believe in it for it to work. And I have a lot of folks who come to me who right away, I think I'm making this up. I don't think this is, so we have to work through all of that. But most people, I'd say in the high 90-something% range have a successful regression, and they're able to see the source of whatever they're dealing with today having its origin in that other lifetime.
Yeah, and I do want to make sure everybody's hearing what you're saying, because I've had the same experiences. It's almost like when, oh my gosh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. And there is something that you can actually even feel your physical body shift when you get that understanding. It's like everything shifts in you, and it's interesting how it lets go. I want to ask one more question since we're talking about karma. Sure. What I have found is that if we've had a traumatic death in a past life, and it doesn't matter. I've had visions of myself being a deer and being killed by a hunter, and then being gutted while I was still alive, and having that traumatic experience, being stabbed, being killed in battle, and all of this stuff. But what I've found is that these traumatic deaths have a tendency to stay with the soul. Have you ever had that experience?
Well, I haven't had any where they thought they were an animal and relived a death. But I've had a lot of people dealing with chronic conditions in this life whose origin was a traumatic death in a previous life. One of the things we look at when I do a physical karma session is, we scan the body and we look for any places where there's discomfort or sensitivity or a birthmark. Dr. Ian Stevenson did all this great work about birthmarks representing a past life trauma. So if people sometimes have birthmarks on their shoulders or in their back, it could have been they had been stabbed there, and that's the remnant of it as a reminder in this lifetime of it. So I have had many, 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 many clients who have experienced a physical death that had ramifications that they brought in with this life. So they'll have, I had one who, and he didn't die from this, but he had arthritis only in his thumbs. And his past life, he went back to where he was in the Civil War, and he was on the Confederate side. And he said that all he liked to do was take his saber and lop off the fingers or the hands of the Union soldiers so that they couldn't fight. And so now in this life, he's got and I have people that I had one who had a terrible case of sciatica in this life. She's got terrible pain. Found out that in a previous life, she arranged for an accident to someone she thought was in competition with her, and this woman fell and broke her leg, and so now she's dealing with the pain that she caused this other woman. So it's if you're looking for a just universe, look no further than karma, because this is where it comes up. The whole eye for an eye, reap what you sow, repeats itself from one life to the other, and especially in the case of a physical trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I'll get back on track now. I took a little detour. Sorry about that. But okay, so getting back to relationships and soulmates and twin souls and all that, how can we? And I'm going to ask this question, but how do we recognize that the relationship is serving a higher purpose? Now, I know that we've already talked about being the observer and it being able to look at from that aspect, but somebody that may be like in the middle of a storm, there's a lot of chaos. Maybe you're in a marriage and you're just keep butting heads, and maybe it's you're controlling them or they're controlling you, whatever it is. How can you give guidance to be able to help people to really evaluate and look at the relationship and figure it out what's happening?
Well, in the line of work that I do, it all goes back to a previous lifetime. You've got a history with these people. And like I had said earlier, our members of our soul family, that's the most intimate relationship of all. They know what presses your buttons. And so I think that the most powerful healing tool of it is to understand the origin of it. So I know I keep going back to that, but I can see things when we do regressions, because I go with them. So whatever lifetime they're going, I'm there. I'm the invisible observer. And so I sort of see things at this higher perspective, right? I can see the bigger picture. And so, so that I could help them, if they're reliving something, say, well, what happens after that? And just keep that whole thing going. Because there's an enormous amount of learning, and there's an enormous amount of emotional response to that lifetime, especially when they put two and two together and they can see that the person they're with in this lifetime is the same person from that other lifetime. Like I had that one woman in my study who had a whole history of being killed by the soul that is now her husband. She came up with maybe 4 or 5 lifetimes in which he killed her, and it was always a throat chakra injury. One time he put a rope around her neck and dragged her from a horse, killed her that way. Another time he choked her to death. And so she came into this life with all kinds of problems with her throat. She had thyroid surgery and all different things that happened. And she put two and two together. And but when we whittled it all down to find out what in the last lifetime he was her father, not her husband, and he killed her because she was he was doing hypnosis, or he was doing some mesmerizing things and controlling people that way, and she had greater talent skills than he did, and he recognized that in her, and he was jealous of it, and he killed her. So in this life they're married in the same kind of pattern, and she's always in his shadow. She always has to do what he does, and she said on some level she's always afraid, if I don't do what he tells me to do, I'm going to die. That was the message from the other lifetimes. Once she saw that in this lifetime, and she saw that pattern and how many times it had come up and what had happened, and she realized it was her choice. We have free will. We don't talk about that very much, but we have free will. We can change the trajectory of our lives at any given point in time. Nothing is etched in stone. Just go a different direction. And that's what the people in my study, my case studies did. Looking at their soulmate or their cellmate relationships and recognizing, I've been dealing with this for hundreds, maybe thousands of years with the same soul. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then the sun comes out and they move on. So it's, like I said, it's the most wonderful healing tool.
Yeah. So are there signs? Are there something that people can look for, whether good or bad, that people can recognize, this is a pattern that I'm having to go through in order to grow. And I understand that this person was put in my life to help me grow. And again, it can be good or bad, but are there like telltale signs where you can recognize that it's a karmic pattern?
Well, I think everybody knows when they are going through something over and over again. It may change, the circumstances behind it, but it would be like, for instance, if your job, if every job you have the same kind of issues come up in terms of your relationship with your supervisor or your relationship with your fellow workers, and you see this happening over and over again, no matter what job you go into, this pattern kicks in and the same things happen. Same thing very clearly happens in relationship issues. They say, you're with this, you marry the same kind of guy that you just got out of a relationship with. Well, why is that? Because those are comfortable those are the patterns that you recognize and you understand, but you haven't really made the decision to stop it, and that's the hardest part. Believe me, I understand that, to step back and go, we're not doing this anymore. I love myself enough, and I want to do this for me, that I'm not going to allow this to continue. So those are some heavy decisions that you have to make. And, I'm certainly not an expert at any of them, other than helping people, lead them to come to those conclusions on their own. And then hopefully with the work of spirit, with praying and meditation and studying and understanding how the universe works, they can make different choices and then free themselves of a repressive, repeating behavior pattern.
Mm-hmm. So when you were talking, one of the things that came up to me was, how do I know when it's a conditioned pattern, like a belief system that, maybe like in this particular lifetime, my parents were very domineering and they took away my power. And so I have a tendency to repeat those experiences because I'm that little small person that has to do what everybody, I'm the people pleaser, or, however we want to describe it. So how do we recognize when maybe it feels like it's a conditioned pattern in this lifetime, or is it a past lifetime experience?
Well, I think everything that happens in this life is a result of your past lives. You're the sum total of all the lifetimes that you've ever lived. Whether you're working on issues from, you're only working on issues from maybe one or two of those lives that you chose to work on in this life. So it's a matter of self-awareness. I don't think, you might have people that are really close to you if you feel threatened in any way, or if you have some fear-based responses to relationship, or the way you're feeling about a family member or something like that. Sometimes it helps to have somebody you can talk to who could give you that objective look at it. Like, have you thought of it from this point of view, or this is what I see? Because when you're in the middle of it, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? So it's very helpful to have to be able to articulate what you're feeling. And one of the ways to do that with spirit is through what I call soul writing, which is writing it's a written form of meditation. And if you learn how to communicate with spirit through writing, you can get all sorts of advice. They're like your 24/7 hotline. They're always there, ready to give you some help. So you're not alone. It gives you a different perspective. It really does on what's going on. And that's always very helpful. So you could use soul writing for any number of things, processing emotion, asking questions of spirit. I did a whole book about that was my first book because that was my thesis on soul writing, and Edgar Cayce taught it. He called it inspirational writing when he was teaching, but that was back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and so over time that phrase inspirational writing has changed. It's not automatic writing. I want people to know.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, it's not automatic writing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I outline that when I teach it, the difference between the two, because there is a difference. And, but it is communicating through the written word with spirit. So it's allowing the information to come from above. It's divinely inspired, coming through you, through your soul, down your arm, out your hand, and onto the paper. And if you use the right forms of protection, say a prayer before you do any of that work, surround yourself with white light, you should be okay. And you'll know you're with the right folks when you get your answers. Because there's the A.R.E, they have cases of possession of people with doing automatic writing. They got into trouble. Mm-hmm. So that's like I said, I like when I teach it, I make sure people understand that there is a difference. But that is one of the best ways to communicate. And anybody could do it too. It's not that you have to have special skills or talents or abilities. Anybody could do it. So if you want to have spirit as your pen pal, I suggest you try the soul writing, and you could get past life information that way. You could get answers to any of your questions about your relationships or career choices or soul's growth or anything like that. All the answers are at your fingertips.
Yeah, that sounds like an easy way. People that have a hard time discerning their mind's thoughts. Oh my God, I almost said it. I know, soul writing. Yeah. Soul writing, it sounds like it would be a good way to start connecting and being able to trust what you're saying, without having to question if your mind is talking to you or not. But another thing, it's interesting again, because everybody that's listening knows that I channel the Akashic records. And what I have found is that if you ever get a negative answer, whether it's demeaning or small, or you did something wrong, then it's probably not from your soul.
Right. Exactly.
Soul writing. And then you can discern whether it's that entity or something that's coming in that's nefarious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We don't want to scare people, but just take some precautions and you'll be fine.
It does. Yeah. So I'm not sure that I covered everything that you would want to talk about soulmates and soul. I always call them soul twins because the records always call it soul twins, twin souls. So is there anything that I missed that you feel like is important that we need to follow up with?
No, I just, I encourage people to just, if you read the book, just to learn about the different aspects of it. I did the last chapter in the book is on two souls who were actually not soulmates or twin souls. They were, she called them mirrored souls. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Have you heard that expression before, mirrored soul?
Yeah.
Um, and the reason she was unusual in that this was actually her last lifetime. I have a lot of clients who will say to me, "Yeah, I'm not coming back." And I said, "Really? You sure?
Yeah, me
You've,
too. Same thing.
you've tackled everything. There's nothing left to learn, huh?"
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
her case, but there are souls that don't need to come back. They're finished, and she's one of them. And so her story with this man that she lived in Chicago, he was in Morocco, and they met on a Facebook group, and their story is very fascinating. And I didn't know, I was going to do a regression with her to find out where she first met him, and Spirit kept telling me there is no past life. And I thought, I've never heard that before. And sure enough, there wasn't. They had never been together in a past life. He was like an emissary who was coming for her to help
Oh,
prepare her.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's that was a little different than what I normally deal with.
yeah,
But yeah, I think if anything, if they come back away understanding uh, what I said in the very beginning, that you are whole and complete as a soul, and that we're just spiritual beings inhabiting a physical body in this beautiful school called Earth, and just finish up your unfinished business and reap your rewards.
So can we both agree that don't live your life looking for your soulmate? Cherish
Yeah.
everyone that's around you and find the romantic partner that fits you best and
Right.
not look for the title of soulmate.
Yeah, don't put a label on it. Don't put a person in a box with a label on it. Just know that you're all part of this beautiful chain of souls that are attached to each other and to the divine, and that we're all here for a purpose and a reason. And the bottom line of the whole thing is love. So just
Absolutely.
experience that on every level you possibly can.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good way to end it. So, how do people get in contact with you? Because you have a number of books, and
Right.
you offer sessions to the public.
I do. All my books are on Amazon. You can read about the books on my website, which is joannedimaggio.com. And I do past life regressions through Zoom. So I work with people all over the world. And my website has a list of speaking engagements that are coming up. And I have a monthly newsletter too. So if anybody wants to subscribe to that, they can. And that will tell you about any sort of research projects that I've got coming up, which when I look for volunteers, I sort of put the word out through the newsletter, and then people are able to participate. But yeah, or just send me an email, joannedimaggio.com, or you could book a regression right online as well.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So all of Joanne's contact information will be at the bottom of the video description. So just look at the video description and scroll down and you'll be able to find her. So Joanne, thank you so much for being with us. This was good information. And for all of you guys that are watching, thanks again. And hopefully we'll see you next time.